Welcome home to St. Anne's. We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you.
So this is one of those fun readings where you guys have all heard it 500 different times. And so clergy, you're like, well, what are you supposed to say now? Because you've heard it preached, probably. How many people here who have been going to church for, most of your lives? A long time. So you've heard this reading a lot. A lot. So sometimes, do you ever get to a place where you're like, probably didn't need to go to church today. I've heard this one. But the reason that we go back to Scripture again and again and again is because it speaks throughout all time. And so that's one of the powers of these Scriptures and these stories. So I may well preach a sermon that you have very likely heard before. But because it is a timeless piece, it will speak now and in this time and in this place, where your life is in this time and in this place, hopefully. And if not, well, you're only here for an hour, so, Like of all the things you've wasted an hour of your life for. Yeah. You've been to the DMV, okay? Like, this cannot be worse than that. So, apologies. But I do really like our readings today because I think they speak in our time and our place because, and maybe it's just me, and many of you have heard me say this, like I don't know how to lead a congregation right now. It's a hard time to be a Christian. Now, having said that, it has always been a hard time to be a Christian. That's just the reality of history. You spend more than 5 minutes studying history and you'll learn, well, we've done this one before. But I think it is very, very hard for us right now, maybe with all the things going on in our world and all the things going on in our lives, for us to keep having the faith of this and to keep trying to do this stuff because it's overwhelming sometimes. Anyone else ever feel overwhelmed? Yeah, me too. Me too, Violet. I often feel overwhelmed. And that's why I think this story has a lot of power, because I want to talk less about what Jesus does and more about what the disciples are feeling at this time, because I think that's probably more likely where you and I land. Most of us are probably not going to do a feeding of the 5,000 miracle. Though I will tell you, you come next Sunday for brunch Sunday, coffee hour will feel like the feeding of the 5,000. It's an Episcopal miracle. You go to any Episcopal event, and there's more than enough food, right? I went to a showing of the Philadelphia 11. The Philadelphia 11 were the first women who were ordained Episcopal priests, and it was 50 years ago on the 30th. That's the anniversary of it. We've been trying to be equal for a while. We've been failing at it for a while, but we keep trying anyway. Back to the gospel, right? We keep trying. And somebody was like, well, you can watch it online. I was like, yeah, but it costs $11 for me to get a ticket to watch it. I'm going down to St. Andrews because St. Andrews is offering a showing for it for free. And I know St. Andrews, they'll have food. Because I know Susan Painter. And St. Andrews doesn't do nothing without food, all right? St. Andrews can put on a spread. And I was like, no, I'm going down there where I get to watch it for free with a bunch of other people. And I know there'll be snacks because that's the Episcopal miracle. We are the feeding of the 5,000, but not the point. Let's circle back to the gospel, shall we? Do watch the movie, though. It's fantastic. You'll have to pay $11 for it. But, it's worth it. It can be so overwhelming to try to do this thing. So I want us to be in a place of understanding where the disciples are at this moment. Because remember, they're figuring out what ministry is like. And these people are all over the place chasing them, right? Because Jesus does like miracles and really cool stuff. And the disciples are able to do some of these things too. And so there are people all over them all the time. And it's overwhelming. It is overwhelming to them. And then all of a sudden they look up, because they've just been like traveling along doing nothing. And then all of a sudden you look up and there's hordes of people around. And they're hungry. Anyone else know anything about hangry people? I work in a middle school. Let me tell you about hangry. People are always like, why do you give kids snacks? And I was like, because I'm not sending them to your classroom hungry. Do you want me to send your kids to class? Hangry is not a good thing. So we've got loads of hungry people. Loads of them. And you're just like, what do you think we should do? And they're like, I don't know. What you gonna do, Jesus? Because we ain't got nothing. And chances are they're hangry too, because the disciples don't usually come into life prepared. I don't know how much time you've spent in Scripture, but the disciples are a lot like us, and they don't really know what they're doing. They're just wandering around with Jesus because he's cool and he's a good time. So chances are they're hangry too, and they're probably a little annoyed when he says this fun little rhetorical question to them, like, well, what do you think we should do? And they're like, I don't know. What you gonna do, Jesus? I want us to understand in that place. Are you ever in that place where it's just so overwhelming? There's just so much to do, and it's stressful, and you don't know what to do. And frankly, you're hangry too. And there ain't a Snickers nowhere in sight. Right? And in that moment where you are overwhelmed and the chaos is taking over, it is so hard to feel like there's abundance. You feel nothing but scarcity, right? I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough this. I don't have enough that. I'm not smart enough. I don't have enough friends. I don't have enough. There's just not enough, right? We get into an anxious, circling place where we keep panicking. And the panic goes down a rabbit hole. And when you start to panic about other things. And suddenly, it's all overwhelming, and it's all dark, and you're just like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And you're just like, chill. I got this. You ever chill and say, God got this when you're overwhelmed? Absolutely not. That's absurd. Nobody does that. When you feel overwhelmed, you just keep feeling overwhelmed, right? The challenge of this gospel and the challenge of Christianity and the challenge of this scripture is saying, I got this. To flip everything from a mindset of scarcity, which is generally what you and I have because we're human. We just feel like we don't have enough. We feel like there should be more. What if those other people have more than we do? Because do you ever feel like they all have more than you do? Yeah, you do. They're all more popular than you. They have more money than you. They have more time than you. They're smarter than you. There's this. That's right. They're not going gray. Right? There's just something. There's always something. We are challenged to flip that and say, there's enough. In fact, not only is there enough, there's an absolute abundance. There is too much. There is so much that it overwhelms us, and there's an overwhelming amount, and there's more than enough for everybody. Because when we go into a place of scarcity, we go into a place of competition. We go into a place of they have more than I do. They. But when we go into a Christian mindset, we go into a we mindset. There is enough for all of us. Because here's the thing. God isn't pie. There being an abundance for everybody means that there's an abundance of love for everybody. Did you know that we have enough resources for nobody to starve? We create enough food on our planet for there to absolutely be zero starvation. We throw food away. We destroy food in the planet. You want to know why we do it? to create a sense of scarcity, to create an us versus them mentality. It is it is a political maneuver. We have enough. There is enough love. There is enough planet. There is enough everything. We create scarcity out of our human selfishness. It is a creation. It is a myth. But what if we say, there's enough? If you and I say, hey, there's enough love in God's heart. Anyone have siblings? Yeah. How do you feel about your siblings? Do your parents have a favorite? Yeah. Now, Violet, do you ever feel like Calvin gets more than you do? Do you ever feel like maybe Mom loves him more than you? No. That's because Beth is the mom of the year. But sometimes we struggle. I know my kids do. The beauty of it is they both think that the other one is the favorite. Right. They both have a sense of, well, that one is getting more. And I'm like, well, that's ironic because I just had that complaint from the other one. Sometimes I feel like God feels like that. It's just like, y'all so worried about who the favorite is and about who gets more stuff that we've missed that we live in a world of abundance. You and I have enough. We have more than enough. And he goes, and the disciples struggle with this so much that after they see this incredible miracle of there being an abundance of Christ creating enough for everybody, more than enough, an overwhelming amount, they get on the boat and what do again? They feel terrified again, right? Yep. So don't feel like, well, we get this message once and then we need to figure it out. No, the disciples have the same struggle. You and I will go outside of this building and we'll be like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed. I don't have enough. I feel afraid. I feel worried. I feel this. I feel that. Because you want to know what? Sadly, we're human. But you want to know what? Beautifully, we are human. There's enough. There's enough. And when we get into a place of fear, of terror, of worry, it's like nailing Jell-O to a tree. It just splatters and makes a big mess, right? It's silly. It's absurd. And we keep doing it anyway. Yes, I love that image. Just think about it. Nailing Jell-O to a tree. You work so hard to do it, right? You work so hard. You get all your stuff together. It takes forever to make Jell-O. And then there it all is, destroyed. That is what fear does to us. Our sense of scarcity, our worry that I don't have enough, that maybe they have more than I do. When really, we all have more than we need. And really, our efforts should be sharing and spreading this around instead of hoarding it for ourselves, worried that there's just not enough pie for you and me. And that is the message of the gospel. And I get that it's hard. So how do we live? How do we do that when we always feel a fear, right? It is impossible right now to feel unafraid. It is so hard because I don't want us to ignore the world going on around us. It is so important that we are paying attention, that we are watching the news, that we are having the conversations, that we are paying attention. It is so important that we are doing that. And yet, if you are doing that, you're probably struggling right now. And we're struggling. And so how do we do it? How do we continue to live a life that Christ calls us to in a world that doesn't want Christ in it? In a world that lies to us and fakes scarcity and fakes creation of fear. How do we do that? How do we really, truly do that? The answer is we do it together. Because when I'm overwhelmed, I go to you guys. And when you guys feel overwhelmed, maybe you come to me, maybe you go to somebody else in this room. And that's what we're going to do. Because sometimes, guys, it's hard. Sometimes it's finals week. Or sometimes the news is just really, really hard. Or sometimes something's going on in your personal life and it's hard. Maybe your health is hard. We get moments that are overwhelming, and it's so hard to live a gospel life. It just is. And that's why we do it together. Because when you're struggling, we're all going to carry it. And when we're struggling, we're all going to carry it. And that's the beauty of the gospel. You don't have to have the answers. Just know that we're going to try again tomorrow. And there's always enough pie. Just go to an Episcopalian, like any event really. I promise there's enough pie.
We want you to know that you're welcome to join us at 10 a.m. on Sundays. Please be sure to hit subscribe to receive our sermons. We can't wait to meet you.